right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So first off, hello and welcome to all of our new Tritons for fall 2022. I know that some of you have already arrived in the US at UC San Diego. Some of you are still in the midst of traveling. So on behalf of the International Students and Programs Office, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever in the world you may be. I also want to acknowledge that today's session is really special because we are partnering with Oasis, which is how we're even able to offer this workshop in the first place. And we have both our international students joining us today, as well as some of our Oasis students. And so we're really excited to just be able to partner with different offices across campus. We want to be really collaborative in the work that we do. And so Vanessa, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself for a brief moment, but we just really want to welcome our Oasis colleagues.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Grace, and thank you, Tanya, for making time to be here and share all of your information and all of your knowledge with our students. Welcome to any Oasis students and all of the international students. My name is Vanessa, and I'm the office manager at Oasis, and I've been here since May, and so far it's been amazing. I've had the opportunity to host events such as this one with our campus partners. So thank you for allowing us to do this with y'all, Grace.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. You are in listen only mode, which means you can hear us, but we can't hear you. However, we definitely want to interact with you today. So feel free to submit questions throughout the session via that Q&A feature on your Zoom menu bar. We'll be answering questions that we can during the session, but we also have some time set aside at the end for like an open question and answer. So we will definitely want to answer as many questions as we can. We're also recording, so this webinar recording, along with all of our orientation recordings, will be available at iwebinars.ucsd.edu, and you can click on webinars for newly admitted students. And then finally, if for some reason we don't get to your question today, you can always follow up with our office via icontact.ucsd.edu. And with that, I'm excited to hand it over to our presenter, Tanya Menendez. We are so excited to have her. Tanya is the co-founder and CEO of Snowball Wealth. She has built 2 profitable companies, has won the Forbes 30 Under 30 award, and as a Snowball Wealth Money coach, she's a first-gen college grad from UC San Diego. So it's just really exciting to have a UC San Diego alum with us who is now helping hundreds get out of debt and start investing. So just a really incredible resource and person. And so we're really excited to have her here. And with that, I'll go ahead and stop my share and welcome Tanya.
Thank you. And really excited to be here. I put together a presentation that I wish I had seen when I was 20 years old in college, because I definitely made some mistakes that cost me a lot in the long run. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you so much, Grace, for sharing a little bit about me. I do want to have a disclaimer that this presentation is for education purposes only. It's meant to spark curiosity and discussion. This is not meant to be a complete view and course on budgeting, but it is meant to start the conversation and give you some foundational information. And a little bit about Snowball before I get started. We are a mobile app, so you can download us in the App Store. We have a free net worth tracker, as well as a money community. We created one specifically for UCSD students. So if you download the app and sign up with your UCSD account, you'll be automatically added to the UCSD community as well. We also have premium one-on-one coaching that is mostly meant for young professionals that recently graduated. So getting right into the discussion, do you have a budget and do you follow it? And I think that, I think that the chat might still be enabled or disabled, but I will move forward and share. So I think one of the biggest questions that, misconceptions that people have around budgeting is that it's meant to restrict your spending. And it's actually not the case at all. what budgeting is it's telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So it's really meant to make sure that every dollar has a place and it's a plan for your spending. So the whole idea around budgeting is to be really intentional about how you're spending your money so that you have no regrets at the end of the month or at the end of the year, and thinking that you could have saved more or invested more or done something better with your money. I also want to share that this is a lifelong skill. And so at every inflection point or at every point in your career, you're going to want to reevaluate your budget. And sometimes people are reevaluate it every month. Sometimes they reevaluate it every year. It really depends on, what is changing in your life. But as you're thinking about budgeting, I think it's really important to understand the emotional aspects of budgeting as well. 90% of money decisions are emotional. So, and it's really important not to start your budget out of shame, to really start it from a more positive framework. So, for example, don't start it out thinking I'm horrible with spending and I need a budget. You should start it out by saying I'm setting up a spending plan so that I can control my money and accomplish my goals. And then know that it's really important to also understand why you're budgeting. And so part of that is making sure that you have an end goal in mind. So for example, if you're a student and you're taking out loans, it's likely really important for you to make sure that you spend within the loan amount that you have, right? Does the loans that you're taking out, does that cover your courses as well as your living expenses? How much do you actually need each month in order to meet your expenses? So I think that starting out really with the end goal in mind is really important. And the other piece, some other key tips are keeping it simple. So I think that having a simple budget is the easiest way to stick to it. Typically what that means is having a clear idea of how much you're making, how much you're spending each month, and then also what are the major expenses that you have upcoming this month, and are you allocating it in the right way? The other piece is being realistic. So for example, if you have a goal to save $10,000 this year or in the next 12 months, break that down, divide that by 12, see how much you need to spend each month or how much you need to save each month, and then break that down even by week or by paycheck, but make sure that you're creating a realistic plan. And here are some 5 steps to creating a budget. The first is determining your income or any other income sources. The second is determining your necessary expenses. And this is really your bare bones budget, in addition to maybe your other wants and needs. And then set a goal. And then make sure that every dollar is accounted for. So when you get your paycheck, you understand where it's flowing into. And then finally, just after creating the plan, monitor it on some regular basis. I usually recommend, if you're just starting out, evaluating it every week and set a time on your calendar, like every Sunday, I'm going to evaluate to see if I'm on track. And then, when you go from there, you can reduce it to once a month or however the cadence is best for you. So in terms of step 1, in determining your income, when you're putting your budget together, make sure to use your after-tax income, because what happens there is you're going back to being realistic. You're being realistic about how much money you have to spend within a month or within a time period. And if your income is changing every month, which is very common, right? Like if you're maybe working multiple jobs or if you have a part-time job, your income can change, but that's still something that you can estimate. So what we recommend is usually using a more conservative estimate and going with the lower amount that you make. That is a variable each month. And then consider all income from all sources. So if you're taking into account loans, if you're taking into account as well as part-time jobs, I think that's also really important. And then a quick note about income, just know that, your net worth is not tied to your self-worth. So it can be changed. Your money journey is going to change every year, every month. So don't feel discouraged if you're not where you're at today. And when you're evaluating your expenses, one way to look at it is, what are you spending your money on currently? And look back at your past statements, your bank statements, card statements, to really understand what you have been spending on historically, so that you can go back and be realistic about what you're able to do going forward. And then write out all your necessary monthly expenses, starting with the most important: housing, utilities, transportation, food, healthcare. We've created a budget template for you, so I'll share the link in the chat. And in a few minutes, we will be following along. You'll be able to follow along as I share my screen and take you through a real example. But you'll be writing out all of your necessary expenses, and then you can also categorize your spending in needs versus wants. And a quick note on expenses and some things to think about as you're writing all of this down, especially as you're looking through your statements. Does this align with your goals? Are you happy? Do you have any regrets on your past spending? And do you want to make any changes moving forward? And even as you're putting together your budget, try to see if you are allocating your money in a way that aligns with your values and what your end goals are. And one other thing about budgeting, and in general, as you're thinking about your own money management, is focus on big wins. I think that sometimes people get stuck in, having a mindset of like just restriction in order, and they think that sometimes they think that that's going to be what is going to get them to their goals faster. But sometimes it's taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture and saying, okay, what are the big moves that I can make in order to change my financial life more in a more material way? So one of that can be like housing. Sometimes it's like your housing expenses can be a big win if you are spending outside of your means in that moment. Another one could be increasing your income, can be another big win. Another big one can be applying for scholarships and getting additional money from other sources. So I'm giving you this context of definitely create a budget, but also think about the bigger picture and how you can really think about big wins that you can have. And if I think the chat may be working now. So if it is, if you're able to put in the chat, if you're thinking about your spending, are there any areas that you can come back on spending that you'd like to share with the group? And feel free to put it in the chat at your leisure. And so lastly, I'll go through step three of creating a budget, which is setting goals. And when you're setting goals, I think it's part of the way to start doing this is looking at short and long-term goals. So typically what we recommend is having a monthly goal, and you can break that down by week. And you can also have a yearly goal that break it down by month. And then what I also recommend is having a 5-year goal and even creating a vision for your own financial life. So if you were to create a 5-year plan for your financial life, what would that look like? In 5 years, where do you want to be? Do you want to be a homeowner? Do you want to have 200,000 in cash or investments? So it can be anything that you want, but I think having that North Star, having that goal that you're looking to will help you set those yearly goals and monthly goals, and then, eventually weekly goals or other big decisions that come up in your life. And okay, so here I'm going to share my screen and share, I'm going to stop sharing so I can pull up a real example. And this is the budget template that I put in the chat. You can go ahead and when you click on that link, and if you put in your email, you'll be able to download your own version of this and create a copy of it. So here, the way to, just a quick tutorial on creating a copy, you will just click file and make a copy, and you should be able to do that. You'll have view only access. But this is an example of a zero-based budget. And here, what it is, it's making sure that every dollar has a place. So I'm just going to go through a quick example of how we work with our premium clients and our premium members in going through and setting up their own budget. So this person is making $70,000, has a $70,000 salary. So their take-home pay after taxes is $43.82. That's how much they're getting each month. And their rent is $1,533. They're paying about $100 in utilities and other fixed bills. They spend about $150 on home expenses. That means like toiletries, cleaning supplies, etc. About $50 on transportation. Actually, this varies greatly by city and location. They're spending about $400 on groceries, $200 on delivery, none on clothing or entertainment or wellness, and $290 on health insurance, and $50 a month on medicine. And then they put $100 here as a buffer. And so based on this budget, this person values, grocery shopping and food delivery. They don't value as much clothing, entertainment, and wellness. But all of this can change, right? So if they wanted to spend less on groceries and less on delivery, they would then have $200 more in their budget to be able to put towards clothing and entertainment. And maybe they wanted to put less of a buffer here and put $50 towards wellness. And the idea is that you have these expenses that you're tracking in these categories. You have your income that's here. You have how much you're putting towards saving and investing in this box, your monthly debt payments, if you have any here. And at the end, everything should total to zero. The net should total to zero because every dollar has its place and it's doing its job. So keeping in this example, they're putting $500 towards their emergency fund each month. They're putting $200 towards savings, which is a sinking fund for their trip that's upcoming. They're putting $400 a month towards their IRA, which is on top of what they're contributing to their 401k. And then they have $8 towards investments that they're putting in on a recurring basis. And in this example, this person specifically was, they were building up their emergency fund and they're paying down their credit card debt. And so that's their priority right now. Once they pay down their credit card debt, they can put down that $400 towards investments, and that's their plan going forward. So you see here it gives you really a roadmap on how you're putting together and how you're making your money flow and work for you so that you are being intentional and actually completing those goals that you have in mind. I'm going to pause there and answer any questions. I know a lot of that was dense, so I'm really excited to hear any questions that you might have or anything that you'd want me to review based off of what I shared. And Grace and Vanessa, feel free to chime in.
I feel like this is really exciting. I'm looking at the template and I can see some of our students who are already, I think, on there making copies, probably playing around with it. But yes, definitely, please feel free to submit questions. We have lots of time for questions. So I would just really encourage you to utilize this. This is a pretty incredible resource. If I can just encourage our students, typically meeting with someone about your finances it takes money. You have to spend money to meet with someone to talk through your finances and create a budget and talk about investing and saving. So yes, this is a great opportunity. Oh, we have some questions.
And we typically charge thousands of dollars for this workshop, so
exactly.
Definitely take advantage of the time.
So pretty incredible.
Yes. Yeah, and let me also share the link to our mobile app. And here, what you'll be able to do is I'm going to share also a promo code so that you can have the premium version for free for 3 months, and you can cancel at any time. So I'll just share that.
It's an amazing resource.
Here. And okay, I saw one of the questions come in So I just put a link in the chat with for the mobile app. Let me just put also the premium page here. Use code UCSD for 3 months free. Okay, so in answering the question on emergency fund, yes. So an emergency fund is one of the most important pieces for your sanity and for your financial health in general. 1 second. My dog, every time I do a presentation, he like wants to make a ton of noises. So sorry about that. But yeah, it's one of the most important pieces. So what an emergency fund is typically what's recommended is 6 months of living expenses. So if you go, I'm going to go back to this example. And actually here, I'll create a copy. So here I would put together a like bare bones budget, and that removes anything that is unnecessary. Or like something that isn't required for you to like live, right? Or to like function and go to work. So that includes like removing, if you were to really put together a bare bones budget, probably don't need delivery, you need everything else. So here you would take your bare bones version of your budget, and in this case, it's $2,523 each month that this person needs to cover their main expenses. You would take that and multiply that by 6 months to get your emergency savings amount. And so in that, it would be 15,000 is the amount that this person would need in order to have a full emergency savings fund. Now, I want to caveat this by saying that if you have credit card debt, sometimes it's recommended to have a 3-month emergency fund while you're paying down credit card debt, because you want to resolve the credit card debt and stop paying all of that interest. But it's really a personal decision. So some people would prefer to build a 6-month emergency fund and then get rid of their credit card debt. Some people have a 1-month emergency fund while they pay down their credit card debt. But I do think it's important to build it, especially if you have debt, because that's what's going to keep you out of debt and get you into that like healthier money mindset. And what are the best apps to do this easily? So we also have a free net worth tracker, which is great. I think Mint has a budgeting tool that's free that you can utilize as well. Those are like, there's another company called YNAB that specializes in that, but they charge a monthly fee that is, I think, a bit higher. I think it's even like close. I forgot. I don't know how much it is, but they also charge a fee. So I would recommend starting off with one of the free ones to see if you even enjoy that. Start off with the budget template and just like getting through and seeing like, basically this template allows you to create a plan. And what the apps do is allow you to monitor your progress. And you can still do that through Snowball's app. We have a free net worth tracker where you can sync your accounts. You can see your net worth growing over time, and it takes into account your debt and all of your assets. And it breaks it down in that way for you too. Any other questions? Or Grace and Vanessa, feel free to also ask if you have any that you think personally or that you think would help any of the audience members. Oh, you're muted.
I'm just thinking to myself.
Oh, okay.
I would also just echo, I know the first time I made a budget, it can feel really overwhelming. And I think I battled some feelings of shame of like, oh, I should know more than I know. And I'm like afraid to ask these questions because I'm afraid that it's going to be a dumb question. It's going to out me how much I don't know about this realm. So just like, I think we all know this, but no question is a dumb question. Like literally ask your questions now because you don't know what you don't know. And getting started, I think, is probably in some ways the hardest step, and it's like the most intimidating step. But honestly, doing this now while you're still have a lot of agency ahead of you is like the best time to do it. So if I can encourage folks to ask all the quote unquote dumb questions, because there's no dumb questions. This is
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And you see this, and it's better to like face it and to ask these questions now, because you don't want to be 10 years from now like making the same or not knowing. So it's better to ask now, and really you're right, it's a very common feeling where it can feel overwhelming and intimidating, and it's almost like learning a new language in some ways. So yep.
I have a question that might be relevant. So what about when students are trying to budget in their housing expenses for on-campus living? It's kind of like a semester fee, or I'm sorry, quarter fee. Would they want to split that into like into their monthly budget by dividing it by however many months, or what are your suggestions with that?
Can you repeat that one more time? So if they have a quarterly loan or budget, break it down by month?
The cost for their housing
for
the quarter, would you suggest dividing that into like a monthly, into their monthly budget by however many months they're living in the residence halls?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's one of the most important pieces of budgeting is making sure that you're breaking it down into a timeline that you can actually monitor. So usually that's per month is the easiest way, because that's how our society works, right? We all live by months, and we're not living by moon cycles or anything yet. So I think breaking it down by month, and then even honestly breaking it down by week can help too, because that way you see after you so for example, breaking down groceries by week is always really helpful. So that way, when you're at the store, you say, okay, I'm going once a week, and this is how much I'm going to spend this week. And if, for example, if you're spending $300 a month, if your budget is $300 a month for your groceries, by 4, you have $75 to go once a week there. So it's always super helpful to break it down like that, because that way you have all these little tricks to stay within the bounds that you created. So I think that's helpful. And then I saw another question here saying, what exactly is credit card debt? This is such a good question. Is it spending on a card for months that you're not paying down? Yes. So it's basically like utilizing a credit card is just, utilizing it and paying it off each month. That's the end goal, right? Like paying it off in full each month. So carrying credit card debt means that you are carrying a balance each month and you're paying interest on it. And usually that interest is pretty high. So and one of the best ways to get a little bit more motivated around credit card debt is getting mad at the fact that you're paying interest to this bank. So if you see how much you're paying them, it can be really frustrating, right? Because you're like basically paying them money to have this balance. So I think that is in general what credit card debt is. And then another question is, would you suggest we start using the stock market / investing? So it depends on where you're at. The roadmap that we have on the mobile app is really helpful for helping you see what other steps are recommended before starting to invest, so that you have a strong foundation. So usually what that means is not having high interest debt. So any debt that's above 10% is usually recommended to get rid of that debt before investing. It's also usually recommended to have an emergency fund before you start investing. And then from there, we actually have an investing course that we also have in a mastermind group that you can join. But there's different products that you can do, like robo advisors and index funds in addition to stocks. So we go over all of the different types of investing and like how you can get started as well. What else? Another question from the Q&A. Oh, awesome. How to do investment, where can I invest? So yes, this is a budgeting workshop, so we're not going to get into any of the investing pieces today, but we could potentially do an investing workshop in the future. We do have one that goes over all of that. I think in the next few minutes, I'm not going to be able to explain all of Investing 101, but what I would say is that we do have this article that is helpful just as a primer to get started. So I'll go ahead and share that. And another, if you do have cash on hand, one thing that I'm telling everyone is making sure that they are aware of I bonds, which are government bonds that are giving a 9% return, but it requires you to lock it up for 12 months. Or 6 to 12 months, depending on your what you select. So yeah, check out that article. I think that's a great place to get started in, if you have cash that you want to start earning interest on, and if you wanted to get started investing, here is a beginner's guide to investing that you can check out. And that I think might help you at least start to get exposure. But what I usually recommend with investing is, like I mentioned, it is literally learning a new language. So be patient with yourself. Don't feel intimidated by it. Just know that it's all going to sound foreign and confusing at first, and that's okay. But as soon as you continue to get exposure, as soon as you start to hear it over and over again in different ways, it'll start to click and it'll start to come together. So don't lose hope and don't feel intimidated by it, because that's what gets people to like stop and like be like, oh, it's not for me, or I don't want to do it, or whatever it is. But like, if you keep going and if you keep like getting exposure little by little, it'll come together. Trust me. Is buying an apartment and selling it after graduating a good method for investing? Real estate is a whole other category and specialty too. It's a whole, there are people that dedicate their entire careers to real estate. And I think, and there's also within real estate, there's a lot of subcultures in terms of like having an Airbnb versus having multifamily homes versus single residency homes. So that is a whole category. It's different without having all of the context. It's hard for me to know if that's a good idea or not. And also it depends on your goals, right? And what other options you have available. So it depends on so many factors. But what I would say is when you're sometimes, real estate is it depends on the location. It depends on the deal that you get. It's all, so I would those are some things that I would start looking at. And then if you are a first-time home buyer, there are a lot of first-time home buyer programs that are location based as well as federal. So definitely check those out as well. How to find the
Oh no, go ahead. I saw a good question come in the Q&A as well, asking about if there's anything students should consider if they're international, being on an international student status and investing. And I think that's a great question for our international student audience. So I would highly recommend you to reach out to an international advisor here at ISPO, the International Students and Programs Office, just for things to be aware of as you're starting this journey. You will have to consider different things being on an F1 or a J1 international student visa. So by meeting with our office, you can have some just tips. And I think this is a great workshop to just kind of get started, see like what should be on your radar. So I think meeting with your ISPO advisor will be really helpful for that, as well as checking out all the great resources that Tanya is sharing as well.
Awesome, thank you. And another question is how to find the best prices and correct prices for everyday supplies. They're very different from my home country, which has a maximum retail price on everything. Without knowing the prices, it's very difficult to budget. Okay, yes, and I think this is a great question, especially as you're navigating new environments, new norms and things like that. So what I would recommend is I would focus on, this is my usual approach. If anything is above $100, I take at least 24 hours and I look at all of the options available. I look online, I look as well as in person, and I really do kind of a deeper dive on that. And you can set your own limit on on what you want. I also look at used, if anything is available used or refurbished. That's another way to find the best prices. There's also a lot of there's a whole subculture, and I love these subcultures in money. There's this whole culture on couponing and frugality. Like I've spent some nights, maybe too long, looking at some of these like areas. So like there's some companies like Slick Deals, and then there's some Reddit communities that also have a ton of like that are good for like couponers and things like that. So there's a lot of resources around that. So, but usually that's how I would approach it. I would look online as well as in person, and that way you can get the best price. The other thing is that most bigger stores like Target and Best Buy will do price matching. So Target, for example, they will price match anything as long as you can prove that and ask their employees obviously how it works, but you can prove that someone else is selling it at a lower rate. So definitely take advantage of all of that, and then yeah, keep asking these questions. I think that as you are getting adjusted to kind of these cultural norms, you'll start to see, and like keep asking questions, because you'll start to like learn more and be surrounded by other people that also have good like money habits.
Yeah, I would love to add on to everything that Tanya just shared because it was so good. But I would say that a part of that is just going to take some time, especially if this is your first time living in the US, living outside of your home country. It's just going to take some time. So give yourself some grace and compassion that as you're starting a new chapter of your life in a new country, it makes sense that you're just kind of like collecting information. And so if you end up spending more money on one item and then you realize it's so much cheaper somewhere else, that's okay. Like that happens. That's just a part of living in a new country. I know I myself have done that when I've lived abroad. So
yeah,
give yourself that time. Also, you could like ask, you can ask Americans, you can ask our office and folks at our office to be like, hey, like, what can I expect for something like this? So that can be a question you ask. And then I also just want to highlight some resources at UC San Diego. So we actually partnered with like the Basic Needs Hub to offer this grocery shuttle. And I think one of the reasons why this is such a cool collaboration is because this grocery shuttle will, one, go to more affordable grocery stores, but two, it also goes to more culturally diverse grocery stores. So I know that a lot of our students might want to shop at 99 Ranch. They might want to shop in different places than La Jolla. And so it's an accessibility piece, right? So I think this grocery shuttle runs every weekend on Saturday and Sundays, going to Convoy, which is a different area of San Diego. So definitely make sure that you're also checking out different resources offered by the Basic Needs Hub. To Tanya's point, see if there are student discounts. A lot of the times, like you can literally Google UCSD student discounts and find a lot of discounts that are available to you. And then sometimes I know students will often take advantage of different like UCSD like free and for sale Facebook groups, like things like that. So sometimes if you are just trying to figure out like, okay, what's going on and how can I maybe save some money, there's a lot of different resources. So you're doing what you should do, which is asking a lot of questions, but we want to support you as you're trying to figure out how to make a budget, one, and then how to make a budget potentially in a new country.
I'd also like to add to that, Grace, a wonderful resource that we have at Oasis is our community fridge, where we partnered with the Food Recovery Network, and we have a fridge that's full of different kinds of foods and is open to the UCSD community during our business hours. And we're located in Center Hall on the 3rd floor. So if there's ever a time where you're facing any food insecurities, feel free to pop into our office during our business hours. And we do have that community fridge open to UCSD students.
Sorry, my internet, I think, went out, but I'm back. Awesome. And yeah, and I think, and in terms of making it difficult to budget, I think going back to giving yourself grace, and then you'll eventually find a few go-to places. So if you have a place that you like going to, a grocery store that you like going to, like how much you can spend per week there, and just focus on the bigger expenses and the bigger categories and find the places that you like to shop at there after you've done some of this exploration. Awesome. Well, I think if there's no other questions, I'll give you all back some of your time, and really excited to have done this, and hopefully we can do more presentations and other topics in the future, but I'm glad that we at least started the conversation on some of these financial topics. And yes, and to Grace's point, no question is a dumb question. Definitely the best thing for you is to ask it, because someone is probably thinking it also. And that happens all of the time. So yes, thank you so much for having me. And feel free to message our chat bot on the website, and that goes directly to our team if there's any other questions.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Feel free to submit any last minute, let's say you're typing, make sure you press send so we can hit any last minute questions. But I just have a few slides. I know some of you were messaging about that survey to confirm your attendance at this workshop. So you can go ahead and fill out this survey here. We're really excited that you are here, and we can support you and connect you with some really good resources such as today's workshop. Additionally, this workshop is eligible for Get CCR credit. So if you've been attending any orientation workshops, events, most likely you can earn credit for attending those. So if you're wanting to learn more about the Get CCR, you can go ahead and head to getccr.ucsd.edu, a really nice, quick vanity URL. Our iEvents calendar is our live calendar of all different things that you can do while you're at UC San Diego with a global international focus. So I know that many of you are already familiar with this resource, but always good to check it out. And then we are hosting meetups. So meetups, we have regional and interest-based meetups. Regional meetups, you can meet students from your same home region. So I know we had a European regional meetup recently. I think also our South America regional meetup. We also have, I think, a few tonight and tomorrow. And then we also have interest group meetups. So maybe you're interested in photography or hiking or food, lots of different ways. Yes, and I'll go ahead and go back and I'll put the survey link in the chat as well. Excited about that. Okay, here I'm going to put the survey link. There's that survey link so you can confirm today's attendance. And as a friendly reminder, the survey link is also, by completing the survey, that's how you'll verify your get credit for the Get CCR as well. So make sure you definitely fill out that survey. Let us know if this workshop something you're interested in, something you'd like to learn more about. We know that this was a topic that came up a lot in our iTriton course, and so we wanted to do our best to offer a resource around this. But again, I think just a huge thank you to Tanya for generously giving up her time. Again, these workshops typically cost lots and lots of money. So it's a really incredible resource to be able to offer this to our students. The fact that we have a UC San Diego alum who's so willing to share with us is just a really incredible thing. And so I just want to acknowledge that, and also the collaboration with Oasis that even made today's workshop possible. So just a lot of gratitude to our colleagues, our folks. And thank you so much, both of you, for being here. All right, everyone, that will close today's session. Have a great rest of your day.